the 50-mile stretch between the Bahamas and South Florida. Very narrow when you think about the ocean. The Spanish, for centuries, they left Havana in fleets. Some of those fleets had more than 100 ships in them and loaded with treasure. Treasure from the New World going to the King of Spain. The most dangerous part of that journey was right here. Yes, a lot of them sank. There's still a lot of them out there. There's probably 200 wrecks alone on Hogstye Reef. I worked that in 1994, 1995, 1996. We probably uncovered 15 or 20 old shipwrecks, and then in 1996 I ran into something called Hurricane Lily.
After that, the Bahamas put a stop to all treasure diving and salvage. Now my sources say it's about to open up again and we'll be back underwater.
Shortly after Columbus's voyage of discovery, the Spanish started sending treasure fleets back to Spain. And they did that for more than 300 years. 300 years of treasure fleets going right past our little island here. And if the pirates didn't get them, sometimes the hurricanes did. Nothing like the sound of silver. This is what it's all about.
There's one thing for sure, if you don't go out and look, you'll never find it.
Captain's rules.
The location of all sunken treasure is secret.
Navigational coordinates will not be shared.
Any clues regarding these locations are probably false.
So after a long summer of out looking for stuff and treasure hunting, I was juggling a lot of balls and I needed a vacation. So Fizz suggested that we come over here to Bimini. We were going to come over and talk to the minister. So thought it'd be a great opportunity to kind of wrap a little business with pleasure on a great tropical island. The area is just a tropical paradise, a beautiful place to come and a fantastic place to look for sunken treasure, and also a great place to come vacation.
Gary has been the spearhead of this whole thing. He's brought a lot into this business, things that I didn't have. His blood pressure started going up, which didn't surprise me because I went through that years ago. And so I said, stop it right there. Let's take some time off. Let's go to a fun place. How about Bimini?
So we booked a flight on Chalk Airways. Chalk's has been in service, I guess, since the 1940s, and have been flying in and out of Bimini and all around the Bahamian Islands for many years. That kind of started our adventure. I mean, what better way to come over to Bimini than flying at 2,500 feet on a small aircraft, then coming all of a sudden seeing the island as it starts appearing on the horizon. A lot of the stress and stuff that I had started slipping away as we landed. Yeah, Bimini is known for its great fishing here. But one thing about fishing and attracting all the fish, there's also a lot of beautiful reefs down there as well. So I'm also looking forward to doing some diving. Being so close to the Gulf Stream, the reefs have to be big, they have to be pretty, and have to have a lot of fish on them.
I've been talking with Mr. Vernon Simonette, who was Speaker of the House in Nassau for years, and the Minister of Transport, Mr. Dion Folks. So hopefully we'll get it going back here in the Bahamas again.
The Bahamian government actually put a moratorium on treasure hunting in the entire Bahamas back in 1995. So it's been almost 12 years now since anybody's been able to do anything legally in the Bahamas. So this connection with Mr. Simonette and getting a meeting with the Minister of Transportation, who would be the one that would issue permits for treasure hunting, is extremely important and extremely valuable.
Hi, Mr. Simonette. I'm doing pretty good. Gary and I are over in Bimini for a few days, and I was just wondering if maybe if the minister had any time, like Wednesday or Thursday, we could pop over to Nassau maybe and have a talk with him. Okay, that sounds good. I'm at the Big Game Club on Bimini, but would you like me to call you back, say, Tuesday? All right, I'll call you back. Say hi to the missus for me, please. All right, I'll talk to you in a day or two. Thank you. Bye-bye. He didn't have his number there, but he's going to call Nassau and get it, and we can call him back, and he'll give it to me, and we can just call Minister Folks directly. Yeah. Okay. Meanwhile, did you see that little bar we walked by?
I did see that.
Okay.
Man, I needed this.
Oh, yeah.
This is great.
We're going to Nassau. I'm going to take Hogsty Reef back, and there are some 1,500 wrecks there that should have some of the rarest coins the Spanish ever made on board. And where's the most likely place to be? Seeing they were made in Santo Domingo, they came through the Windward Passage, Hogsty Reef. That's a no-brainer. That's why I took it. And that's why I keep coming back to the Bahamas. Plus, all the women here love me. Working over in Florida, especially we were in North Florida, visibility's bad. There's lots of problems. I mean, logistic-wise, it's horrible. So Gary and I decided, hey, let's take a week off and go to the Bahamas. And I thought, well, that's a good idea because I can't think of any place in the whole world I'd rather go. What's special about Bimini and what I like about it is it's the closest Bahama island to Florida. And here again, we're talking that narrow channel. Ponce de Leon, he thought this was a Garden of Eden. It's just such a beautiful place.
Bimini is a great little spot. Where it's located is some 52 miles to the east of Florida. And basically it's sitting on the east side of what is a channel where the Spanish would take their ships up coming from Havana, and they would have to shoot between Florida and Bimini and catching the Gulf Stream on into Spain.
Let's see if we can put the bow right over this sand patch right here.
Bill Keith at Bimini Undersea set us up to explore the island's underwater pleasures and treasures.
He runs one of the best operations I've ever seen. And in 37 years, I've seen a lot of them. He's personable, he's smart, runs a good operation.
He came up with two places that he suggested for us to go. One was a little deeper reef. It was sitting at about 70 feet of water, right on the edge of the Gulf Stream. And the topography of that reef was huge, giant coral heads. These coral heads probably went up 15, 20 feet, sort of like little valleys in between them, sand channels in between, so you go from one coral head to the other. And diving that one, I mean, that was a fun dive. We actually had to drift dive that area because there was a lot of current in it. We just drift along freely. We don't have to worry about coming back to a particular location. The boat will go to where we are. So at the end of our dive, we come to the surface, signal that we're okay, and the boat comes to us. It's very relaxing, low stress, sort of like you're flying underwater, just flying with the current. And that's just so much fun.
I've done dives where we say we run a hot boat, and that means the motor's always running and the boat's always moving, and they're trying to follow your bubbles or wherever you are. Today was very safe. We had a big ball on a rope, and we hold that and we just take off with the current. It's the easiest, it's the best, it's the most fun of all the diving that I know about. For treasure, it's the same thing. You don't hook the anchor, you carry it in one hand and the current takes off with you, metal detector in the other hand. Drift diving is a heck of a good way to find stuff, and I've had some success with it. I gotta say this, I haven't had a fun dive in more than 30, 35 years. I just never did it. So I did a drift dive here and it was fun.
You know, I've dove with Fizz, I don't know, we have hundreds of dives together. And I've never seen the man smile underwater. That dive, he had a grin from ear to ear. As we're hanging on to that line, the drift line, he's just got this big old grin on his face, and that was worth the whole trip right there, just to see him do that.
Grilled fish, chicken, and lobster.
The best way to travel in Bimini is to rent yourself a golf cart. As long as we're this close, dude, the museum's right down the street. We ought to just check in there and see what's going on.
Oh man, look at that, Fizz. What date on this do you think?
These are reinforcement bands. Trunnions are kind of low, and I'm going to say early to mid 1600s, probably British. I got a couple of the old Bahamian flags here. They had two of the old pirate flags, and one of them is what we call the Union Jack, which was the British flag, but they both had the round logo that said, "Restore commerce, expel the pirates." I can't read the Latin, but you can sure see it here, and it talks about the pirates.
That says all British territories.
Oh, this is restore commerce, expel the pirates.
Yeah, there it is, yeah. Sure enough.
I got one of those. It's somewhere in a box in my storage. Those flags are rare. There's not many left. To me, that's a unique piece of history. That's a great artifact. I don't think that's funny, and I'll bet if the curator of the museum was here, you would be expelled along with the pirates. How's it look?
Looks good. Let's get out of here, dude.
Do you know how lucky we are? Today's Monday. We're in Bimini. We're diving. We're drinking. Think of those millions of people at their job.
I wish they could all join us.
I do too.
It would be nice.
I'm just pointing out how lucky we are, and I know it, dude.
Yes, we are. Hey, how you doing?
That all right?
Very cold.
Where you from, man? Where you from?
We're Keys.
The Keys, Florida Keys?
And we stopped at Cherry's. Yeah, it doesn't look like much, and it's not much compared to what you're looking at bar-wise. But over here, it's the creme de la creme. And we've been there. We're going back.
The wheel has returned.
God bless the Bahamas.
God bless the Bahamas.
Welcome to the Bahamas.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for coming. And come back again.
Come look again.
I plan on it.
When Treasure Divers continues, we splash a concrete ship with a Bermuda Triangle connection. Then, are these underwater steps part of the lost city of Atlantis?
Hey, aren't you those treasure diver guys I've heard about?
And even when we're not looking for shipwrecks, somehow they always seem to find us.
I'm Corinne.
It's Flight 19. Flight 19 was a training flight that took off out of the Naval Air Station in South Florida, 9 aircraft in the squadron, and they all disappeared. And no one knows what happened to Flight 19. Not only did all of Flight 19 disappear, but 2 search planes that went out looking for Flight 19 completely disappeared, and no traces of either the flight itself or any of the search planes were ever found. The reason the Sapone is significant in this story is the fact that this was one of their first points on their training mission. And the Sapone is probably the most well-known wreck that's in the western Bahamas. It's made entirely out of concrete. In fact, if you take a look, you'll see that most of it is concrete, and it's framed with steel rebar. And what it is, it's one of a series of ships that were built in the early 1900s called Liberty ships. Liberty ships were built because the federal government had pretty much put a lock on all the traditional shipbuilding supplies in prep for World War I. And the commercial industry, commercial shipbuilders were sort of at a loss. And they came up with this technology, basically, that it didn't matter what you made a vessel out of, as long as you displaced more water than you weighed, it would float. In the late 1920s, there was a hurricane, a very, very dramatic hurricane, that drove this boat up onto the Bahama Bank.
During World War II, planes from the Air Force, also from the Navy, went out and used this ship for target practice.
They would bring training flights out here and they would shoot 50 caliber machine gun shells. They would drop dummy bombs on this thing, which accounts for the condition that you see it in. The sides just didn't fall off, they were shot off. And thousands and thousands and thousands of rounds of 50 caliber machine gun shells were shot at this. And in fact, it's one of the few artifacts that we allow people to take when you're on a dive here or when you're on a snorkel. Especially after a stormy period, we'll still find one or two machine gun shells.
This opponent itself sits only in about 15 feet of water. It's probably around 40 to 50 feet high. A lot of the sides are gone. The ship's in pretty bad shape. It's concrete and there's a lot of steel girders, there's a lot of steel rebar in it, and it's all rusting away. But it was safe enough, I felt, to go inside the ship, which was pretty neat. You go inside the cargo hold and dive inside there. The whole dive was, like I said, a maximum 15, maybe 18 feet deep. Not very deep at all. Very crystal clear water on the inside. And it's just kind of a unique dive. You get a different perspective of the ship coming up out of the water on each side. So it kind of creates a little bit of a pool effect, if you will.
Bill from the dive shop said that on that particular wreck, it's the only place you can actually take artifacts home with you as long as they're the 50 caliber shells. He didn't give much hope for any of us finding any, but I brought back 16 of them, and I gave one to everybody on the boat, still had a few left over. The secret is hand fanning in the potholes. You just go along, you see a crack. Of course, it's full of sand, but it'll show just a little bit. And they're not deep, and you just hand fan them out. Those bullets are laying down in the bottom. It's not hard to figure it out. That's chapter 6. But I even found 2 12-gauge shotgun shells that I know the Navy didn't shoot there, so I don't know where in the heck they came from.
Mother Nature's taking it back. It's just starting to fall apart a little bit. And I think another hurricane comes along, then that ship's just going to collapse on itself. But it was a real interesting dive and one that I'll remember.
The Saunders brothers, Ansel and Ashley, are the local authorities on a few of our favorite things: history, pirates, and boats.
Hey, Ansel.
Ansel!
Hey, pretty good. We hear you're the best boat builder in Bimini.
Well, I guess there's only one boat builder, so I must right now.
Ansel is a boat builder, wooden boat builder. I've ran across a couple over the years, but this guy has really got his craft honed. It's fine-tuned. Really great work. We got to watch a little bit of it, and you know, we got to rub the wood and everything.
Everything is glued together and screwed together, and that makes it different when everything is glued, because you have to fit it, take it back off, then glue it, and then screw it. All brass screws. This is a horse flesh wood. very beautiful, hard, dense, grows slowly. Almost all the islands have it in it. Andros has the most.
You know, back in the old days, the shipwrights used to go out and look at the trees and see just where they get the knees for deck support.
The natural turn.
Yeah, this is great. You're doing the same thing.
Yeah, this is bonefish, and she's drafted. Because I was a bone fisherman for 50 years, I know exactly what we need on those flats. So she's drafted in a way, she's got some V in the front so that you don't broach, but she flattens out in the back so she gets over shallow water. Bonefish can get over in 3 to 4 inches of water. On a wood boat, it's more quiet than any other type of material boat.
Like aluminum
Yeah,
or fiberglass.
fiberglass. They make a little more noise and the little chops, you see.
Right.
Bonefish are very sensitive to noise, as you know. And even the hinges.
Use
The bronze screws.
bronze screws.
Yeah, because you know the brass screws today can't take tightening; they'll ring right off on you.
Well, they used a lot of bronze spikes in the sailing ships of old.
Oh yes.
And that was for strength and
And they'll take salt.
salt water.
Yeah. This would be a $40,000 boat. $10,000 is material,
Right.
and the other $30,000 is a labor of love because it takes from 5 to 6 months to do this.
It's a dying craft, and of course the whole time I'm standing there listening to him and watching what he does and how he works, and I'm thinking, I'm so glad we're getting this on film because you will never see that again.
Okay, this is the most important thing of this whole boat building. A wooden rule, which can also be used as an angle square, you see, to make things. You can't do that with a tape. So I want to know how this angle to put on this here to plane this down. This is on an angle. This don't even look like it's not on an angle. You just do it like that and you put it like that. So that's the angle of this cross here and this going like that. So I would plane this down to that angle rather than go and get a bevel square. You gotta square on a rule on you at all times. This is a back pocket thing, you know. When I finish the floorboards in there, you see how this screw head here? Every screw would be turned this way of the boat. It goes right to the side here.
This is just fantastic.
This man 75, they can't get an apprentice. It scares young kids. Take a good look at this because you will not see it again.
Damn.
It don't look so. It's sad, but it don't look so.
Ashley, his brother, took us out to a spot in Bimini that's known as Pirates Cove.
It is a quiet morning in Bimini. The year is 1717, and a Spanish ship is sailing over the gentle waves of the Gulf Stream.
Ashley's a historian, and he's written some really good books about Bimini history, knows the pirate stuff inside out.
It is carrying gold and silver and precious jewels back to Spain from the rich New World. Little do the Spanish sailors know, but on the other side of the island, another ship is waiting. It is a pirate ship. As long as there have been ships to carry treasure across the seas, there have been pirate ships to rob them.
Fizz.
Looks like a ballast truck.
Yes, sir.
Is it?
Yes, sir. Look at this.
The piracy in the Bahamas, I think, started coming in sometime in the 1600s. The truth is, I really didn't follow piracy all that close, although I know it's like the catchword these days. But the Spanish considered the Dutch, the French, and the English, they considered them all pirates anyway. So if you go by the Spanish definition, this area was loaded with them. Pirate Cove, that area is secluded. There's nobody living there. There's no buildings there. the pirates actually were there. That was a place where they could waylay and try and ambush. Spanish galleons were the best, but they weren't particular. They'd take a merchant ship as well.
The pirates take all they can from the ship and burn what they can't carry. Then they sail away to divide up the loot. Each pirate gets an equal share, except for the captain, who gets more. It is part of the pirates' code.
But most of the time when they got their division, they'd head for the tavern and they would spend their money on wine, women, and song. Not a bad idea. I'd like to come over here and bring a metal detector. Anybody tried that?
No, nobody's tried it up here, but this would be an ideal place, and even across the creek here, on the other side would be ideal too,
Uh-huh.
This is a excellent spot for treasure. Excellent spot. If you was gonna dig,
yes.
The pirates like the sand, you see, to bury treasure. They're not gonna go in a rocky area.
Good.
Such,
Good thinking.
it's too much trouble. So this is only a sand spit here, and right across there is easy digging, and this is where ideal for burying pirate treasure.
Well, I know where a metal detector is.
I know where a shovel is. You use the shovel, I'll use the metal detector.
Well, half of what you find is mine.
I was just amazed that it is still there. It is still pristine, and we're thinking about going back there and taking a metal detector. You hear a lot about the buried pirate stuff. It wasn't as prevalent as people think, but every now and then after a raid, an individual guy might bury his little box, whatever his division was, 8 or 10 coins or a couple of rings or something. Bonefish hole. It's in one of those little secluded channels that every place has. We have them in the Keys. You just run through the mangroves.
They also now named this Dr. King Creek of Peace because when he was here, he said it was so peaceful. There's so much life all around us.
And we stopped there, and it was actually the place where Martin Luther King wrote his acceptance speech for the Nobel Peace Prize. And then the day before he was assassinated, he was in the same place.
This is the very spot that he wrote his last speech, right here in these mangroves that we call Dr. King Creek of Peace, which is the Bonefish Creek. And he delivered that night. Next day he was gone. Now, Dr. King with tears rolling down his cheeks, he looked, he said,
It's just moving and overpowering. It's almost like a holy place, I guess. I'd like to go back sometime. Seems to me it'd be a good place just to sit there and try and think, which I sometimes have a hard time doing, but I loved it.
When Treasure Divers continues, more treasures of Bimini, the mysterious Bimini Steps, plus a tip that leads us to an amazing shipwreck. Only 50 miles from Florida's southeast coast, the Bimini Islands are right across the Gulf Stream. For 300 years of Spanish rule, this narrow passageway was frequented by treasure ships and pirates' plunder.
Each pirate gets an equal share, except for the captain, who gets more. It is part of the pirates' code.
Now, Fizz and I have an opportunity to discover some of that sunken history, including today's dive at the mysterious Bimini Road, thought by some to be part of the lost city of Atlantis. And as we're about to find out, That's just the beginning of the treasures of Bimini.
Treasure diving in the Bahamas started in 1981. We came to West End and we're doing magnetometer surveys all around Grand Bahama Island. We found 28 wreck sites. That narrow channel was the worst part for the Spanish, the most dangerous part for the Spanish. And that's why all these wrecks are here. Hello, Mr. Folks. Yes, sir, this is Carl Fismer. I've been talking with Mr. Vernon Simonette, who was Speaker of the House in Nassau for years, and the Minister of Transport, Mr. Dion Folks. So hopefully we'll get it going back here in the Bahamas again. Yes, sir, Tuesday on the 7th, 9 o'clock. Yes, sir. I'm going to bring my diving partner with me, Gary Mace. He's also from the Florida Keys.
We're not really sure what the minister wants to talk to Fizz about, but we believe that he would like to discuss with Fizz about being a consultant of some sort, looking at the plans that they have for issuing permits. We don't know if that's exactly what they want, but that's kind of been the indication. And we've heard through the grapevine that they are wanting to open it up again.
Yes, sir, I got that. 9 o'clock next Tuesday, August 7th. This moratorium, it's been in effect almost 10 years, and basically what it is a hold on shipwreck salvage. But Mr. Simonette and the Minister of Transportation has said they're very close to lifting it so we can all go back to work. Yes.
So we have the appointment. We're coming back to Nassau next Tuesday to meet with the minister. That leaves time to relax and enjoy Bimini's lost city of Atlantis.
We're out on what's commonly known as the Atlantis Road side. It's also called the Bimini Road. And what we're going to be diving on is a series of stones that appear to have some design to them. And that's really what the whole controversy comes down to, whether they're a natural formation or whether they have some design to them.
They say that it's part of the lost continent of Atlantis. I don't know if it is or not. I've been here before, but I never went on this kind of a dive. But today, we'll check it out.
It's another gorgeous day. I mean, look at this. This water is just absolutely crystal clear. I love the Keys, but fall in love with Bimini too.
The reason it's a controversy has to do with a gentleman by the name of Edgar Cayce. He was around in his peak probably back in the late 1920s, 1930s, and he was a clairvoyant. He made a lot of predictions, and he made a couple of very specific predictions about Atlantis that were tied to the Bahamas and Bimini. In fact, he said that the first signs of Atlantis rising would show themselves in the Bahamas near the island of Bimini, and he specifically said between the years 1967 and 1968. Fast forward ahead to early 1968, and a guy by the name of Valentine lands his plane on South Bimini, and he's pretty fascinated by what he finds, by what he sees, because he's already seen it from a couple thousand feet in the air. And he takes a few photographs of the area with an old Nokonos, one of the first Nokonos underwater cameras. And he heads back to Miami. Well, a couple of these photos make their way up to the Edgar Cayce headquarters, and a few people look at this and say, these came from where? Bimini? And sure enough, they said, wow, Cayce talked about Atlantis showing itself 67, 68. They came out, they did all types of measurements, they looked at the area, they drilled into the stones and took core samples, and they collected a heck of a lot of data. And to no one's surprise, at the end of their research, they made the declaration that they believe that this is in fact an area that has some design to it. Stones can't be man-made, but they can be set up in such a manner so that there's some design to their layout. They didn't go so far as to say they had anything to do with Atlantis, but they did say that it had a man's touch on the site here.
dove the Bimini Road, which I really enjoyed. And I think millions of people come every year just to see it. But after they've looked for 10 or 15 minutes, they got a little bored because it is repetitious. But the repetition on those gigantically square pieces made me believe that quite possibly they were put there by man.
The structures out there are just too perfect to be nature. Too many square lines, straight lines, rectangles. I think it may be part of an ancient port or maybe an ancient seawall. It was pretty exciting knowing that thousands of years ago, a man put this down there. For what purpose, we don't know, as a road, as a seawall, but put them down perfectly and used some sort of logic to lay them down.
Atlantis crumbled, according to Plato, I think about 11,000 years ago. And there's been a lot of books written about it. There have been movies made about it. I think maybe where there's smoke, there's fire. They look real to me. I tend to believe it. I tend to believe that's true because I know firsthand that there's another section to this road that's aimed towards Bimini, but it's in South Florida. Russell Needhawk, who had been living in the Keys from the time of the Flagler Railroad construction, the hurricane of 1926 took all the sand off of Miami Beach. Russ saw identical blocks there. He told me about them. They ran off into deep water going towards Bimini, and this is the first time you ever heard that information. Hey, dude, this is the Hemingway place.
Wow.
Burned down last year. Here's to Mr. Hemingway.
Here's to Mr. Hemingway.
Bimini and islands in the stream and all that good stuff.
One of the places Fizz and I went by was the Complete Angler. It was a lodge that was frequented by Ernest Hemingway. Wonder if Hemingway actually walked on this.
Look what I got.
Oh, dude.
Edge of a bowl.
It was kind of neat being in a place where Ernest Hemingway hung out. That was kind of neat. And we had to sit down and have a beer and a cigar in his memory, which we did. Dude, I don't know about you, but so far, good vacation.
So far, so good.
You know, it never amazes me the number of times that we go to different locations around the country, and Fizz and I talk about treasure hunting, and then all of a sudden we have somebody that walks up and knows something or wants to talk to us about treasure. People are always interested in it.
Hey, aren't you those treasure diver guys I've heard about?
As a matter of fact, we are. Hi.
Yes, ma'am. Hi.
Nice to meet you. I was washing my boat and I overheard these guys talking about treasure and then I recognized them and I said, hey, I know where there's some great ballast piles. Want to check them out?
Are you kidding?
Really?
Seriously.
We don't really have any way to get out there.
What do you think this is?
And she was nice enough to say,
Heck yeah.
ta-da, what about this boat? 46-foot custom built, really goes fast boat. That's a home run, lady. So
all right, well,
that's what we did.
Tomorrow's good for you?
Tomorrow sounds good. What time?
9 o'clock?
Sounds good to me. I can break my engagements.
All right. All right, I'll make it worth your while.
We'll be here.
All right, don't drink too much tonight.
Perfect.
We'll be there.
All right, I'll see you then.
Okay.
All right,
Great.
cheers.
I told you I was a chick magnet.
You know, I'm beginning to love Bimini.
I'm beginning to love the treasure business.
Oh my gosh.
Look at that boat.
Isn't that beautiful?
When Treasure Divers continues, our vacation turns into a real treasure dive, plus a close encounter with a feared man-eater.
there's any treasure on that.
This young lady had heard us over talking about some treasure stories, and she said that she happened to know where a few wrecks were in case we'd be interested in seeing them.
See you then.
Okay.
All right, cheers.
And we went out for a full day of diving on a ballast pile in the Bahama Channel.
Got to clean the mask. It's very beautiful out here. It's relatively unmolested compared to a lot of other parts of the world. We're about 40 miles away from Bimini in an area called Gingerbread Grounds. And my wife and I, a few years ago, discovered a ballast pile here. It's got some nice wooden planks left and some bronze keel spikes and stuff like that, so we're going to show our friends and have a good time looking at it.
Generally, if it's cracked ballast or quarried ballast, most of the time it was an English wreck. The Spanish used to take theirs mostly out of the rivers, like the rivers in Spain, and I like to see nice, round, smooth rocks when I initially look at a site. Well, I'm kind of looking forward to checking out this wreck. It's probably little known, and most people over here don't really pick on them, so let's try and see what it is, and then we'll have a better idea as to what may be on it.
Seas were maybe a half a foot, visibility around 60, 70 feet. It was only about 19, maybe 20 feet deep. Beautiful coral in the area.
It was fitted with iron above the water line and bronze below the water line. That would have been a good way to save money, but at the same time still build the quality ships. The English were great shipbuilders.
Bronze nails everywhere. There was some keel pins sticking right out of the bottom of it there, right out of the wood, and a lot of planks on the bottom. So it was a pretty wreck. We dug around to try to see if we could find some stuff. It was a sailing ship. It did have ballast on it. It was a high-class ship because it did have some bronze spikes on it.
A lot of mixed ballast on it, but the most pertinent I felt like was the white flint ballast rocks. And of course that tells me that it was from England because they only grow in one place, and that's in Dover. Additionally, they're not just used as cargo, but they could actually nap flints from the ballast rocks for their flintlock muskets and pistols.
You know, in the Bahamas, it's legal to take lobster over there, and they have some pretty nice ones. But the way you have to get them is free dive. You can't use scuba to actually harvest the lobster. Well, while Fizz and I were checking out these two wrecks, Corinne and Charlie and Daniel and Dennis, the other two guys that were on the boat, they were out free diving, getting lobster and grouper, and they were quite successful at it.
I learned how to spearfish from Charles when we started going out, and I picked it up. I loved it. It's something that I could do every day, and I like to catch it and clean it up and bring it home and cook it for dinner. It's become my ambition now to hold my breath longer and go deeper and get bigger fish, and it's awesome. I love it. It's like my meditation, so to speak.
We've come out here free diving, spearfishing for many years, and as you're looking around for spots to find fish and lobster and conch, you happen upon various sites like this, and there's many sites like this out on the bank.
I would love to find treasure, and every time we are on a ballast pile, I have to say I'm certainly looking for it, and I'm always thinking about it and where it came from, and I wonder who was on this ship. And of course, it's fascinating. It's, you know, the stories that you hear about pirates and treasure, and it's always fascinating.
The second ballast pile was only about a mile away. It wasn't that far. The ballast pile were forming a pyramid, a big mound, and they were stuck together, and they had bricks that were intertwined in the ballast pile. So that probably was their load of cargo. The currents in that area were pretty strong, so we weren't able to see what was down there. We didn't have our metal detectors with us, so whatever we could find would just be by sight. And I was hoping Fizz, with his expert abilities to spot unusual objects on the seafloor, would be able to see something, but the currents were just too bad, so we weren't able to look at that area very well.
I love diving with these treasure divers. I think it's amazing and fascinating, and it actually inspires me to do more of it. And I like looking at the salty dogs and thinking about, oh, they got that pirate edge to them. They're awesome, and definitely I hope one day they find something fantastic and wonderful and make lots of money and make more shows and enjoy it. Maybe I'll find it with them, who knows?
Replacing salt with sweet.
Charles, I sure can't thank you enough for this. It was just great.
I'm glad that I was fortunate enough to run into you and that we could get together on this, because I've been out to the site many times and learned a lot today from your knowledge, so I appreciate that.
This is a hog snapper, or hogfish. My favorite fish probably in the sea to eat.
We got back to the dock after a great day of diving, and we had all these lobster and fish to clean. So getting some real nice grouper steaks coming off and real nice fillets of hogfish. Edible treasure. And I looked down and threw some of that fish out there, and lo and behold, here come a big old bull shark. They hang around the docks there waiting for fishermen to clean their fish and throw it overboard. They got a great meal that night because, tell you what, some of those carcasses of the grouper and the hogfish were pretty doggone big. We tooled around. It'd take you, I'd say, all of about 15 minutes to cover the whole island in a golf cart, and that's if you were driving real slow. The island of Bimini is not a very big place, and word gets around pretty quick, and people started to hear that the treasure divers were on Bimini.
I have some coordinates of probably 2 sunken ships.
Really?
Yeah. If you want it, you can get it.
He said, are you interested? Well, we absolutely are interested. He had his GPS at home. He said, where are you going? We said, we're going to the end of the world.
End of the world? Give me 10 minutes and I'll be back down with it for you.
Sounds good, we'll be there.
Great.
It's okay?
Yeah.
All right.
That was good.
All right.
Yeah, appreciate it.
See you guys in 5.
Okay.
All right. All right, guys.
Man, they just come out of the woodwork, don't they?
Well, they know I'm here.
There's only 2 roads in Bimini. You got the low road and the high road. And on those 2 roads, the 2 best bars in the area, on the high road is Sherry's. And on the low road is End of the World Bar, which is owned by Sherry's mom. We're here.
My favorite place.
Hey, how are you?
Hi, fine, how are you?
Doing good. Thirsty.
I think I can show you my 12-year-old underwear.
Oh my God. I thought you still wearing those things.
Maybe I did put them back on before I left. I don't remember.
We headed on down there and waited for him, and sure enough, about 10 minutes later.
What's up, guys?
Hey, Ladden, how you doing, buddy?
All right.
All right. What you got there? Oh, okay. Well, these things are nice, aren't they?
Yeah. Very handy.
You fish it? You use that fishing number? Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah, mutton snappers?
Mutton snapper, yeah.
You know, most fishermen are the ones that actually find the wrecks as opposed to the divers.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Oh, there it
You see,
is.
those are the coordinates.
Okay.
I'd like to give you $20 for your troubles and your time, and if we find something, I'd be back to share this with
All right,
you.
all right.
I gave him a little bit of money.
Thank you very much.
But the numbers could potentially be worth millions of dollars or nothing. If we hit on it, I intend to give him a bigger finder's fee.
See you later.
All right, guys.
Hold the door for me.
Get in. Let's go. Let's get out of here.
All righty.
All right.
What a day, what a day. Miles and miles of beach honeys.
This looks like a good spot. You know, we may not have found any gold and silver over the past year, but here in Bimini, we found a real treasure in the people and the culture. It's a fantastic place.
Gary and I are coming back next Tuesday on business. Going to the ministry and talk about shipwreck salvage here in the Bahamas.
It's time for a beer.
The Bahamas was a pretty good trip. Fortunately, we were able to take care of some business. It was a holiday, it's a diving holiday, but at the same time, I had arranged for a meeting with a minister of transport, and his department also controls the shipwreck permits. The moratorium that they've had for 10 years is about to be lifted. The Bahamian government knows that the shipwrecks are great resources, could generate a lot of revenue, as well as a lot more divers coming on holiday in the Bahamas. We didn't hit into the mother lode, but we've got several good leads that are going to take us to it. It isn't easy. That's why there's not many serious people in this business. But all those hundreds of disappointments seem petty once you hit it big just one time. I've been there and I've done that, and I'm not through yet. So Gary and I went in for the meeting. It went well. We have to submit a letter of everything that we discussed, which includes a museum, and they've been needing a treasure museum there for years. They have a lot of treasure. So Gary and I said, you're kind of missing a bet. You can make money just by showing that to people. And he said, good idea. So we're submitting that proposal as well. It's just a winning combination, and it's finally coming together. God bless the Bahamas.
God bless the Bahamas.
Welcome to the Bahamas.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.